The moon was full and shining bright, and there I was in the heat of the night. I found this place I'd like to go, even though it's far from home. It all made sense as I watched the crowd, the things I heard. This place was wild. The lights were low, people everywhere, sounds of love screaming through the air. It was there I fell in love. It was there I found my passion flowing, and far from my mind was the world I left behind. I used to think how it would be to find someone who needed me, and it was there my dream came true, 'cause it was there that I met you. So many days had come and gone, I almost thought I'd write a song, and then I found this crazy place where I met you to end the race. It was there I fell in love. It was there I found my passion flowing, and far from my mind was the world I left behind.
Hello and welcome back to Memories of a Musician. I'm your host, Vito DeSalvo. Once again, we have a great program for you this evening. I'm going to introduce you to a very dear friend and colleague. Born and raised in Germany, her name is Ulrike Schwarz. And she happens, I'm going to tell you how I met Ulrike, is through a very good friend and a colleague that I was at Duquesne University School of Music all 4 years together, and that is Jim Anderson. Jim and Ulrike not only joined their hands in marriage, but they also joined their talents and skills to create Anderson Audio in New York City. Consequently, Ulrike was mostly responsible for mastering and in some cases mixing some of my latest projects, which included Inner Space, which was my solo piano album, my retrospective album, which was Vito DeSalvo, a retrospective, which was a double disc of all my original music, mostly the Italian style music. And then, of course, mastered my Symphony #1. So you're going to hear just a little bit of the kind of the end of the first movement of that symphony as I play an opening montage. And this will give you some sense of the various things that, as a recording and mastering engineer, that Ulrike has done. You'll see a lot of photos of her in various settings. I'm going to play this video for you. Here we go. Wow. And you can see the depth of the range of the things that Ulrike has done. And to give you even a better idea, I'm going to read her bio before we bring her onto the program. A broadly acclaimed engineer and producer, Ulrike Schwarz is a trailblazing audio innovator with more than 2 decades of experience across the film, television, radio, and recording industries. Born and raised in Germany, Schwarz discovered she had perfect pitch at an early age. And as a teenager, she became one of only 3 students to be accepted into the exclusive Tonmeister program at the University of the Arts in Berlin. After earning her degree, Schwarz worked with German public radio and spent more than 10 years serving as the senior sound engineer for large orchestral and jazz productions at the famed Bayerischer Rundfunk in Munich, where she broke the mold as a woman in a male-dominated field and garnered numerous honors for her recordings and broadcasts, including multiple Echo Classic, Diamante Opera, and multiple awards for the German music industry. In 2015, Schwarz moved to New York full-time to team up with her now husband and production partner, Jim Anderson, with whom she's created a groundbreaking body of work in the field of immersive audio. As creative technically as she is artistically, Schwarz designed and built her own custom portable recording setup from scratch. And in just the last few years alone, she's garnered multiple Grammy nominations for her work with artists as diverse as American jazz stalwart Patricia Barber, contemporary Norwegian composer Gisle Kverndok, and soprano saxophonist Jane Ira Bloom. In 2023, Schwarz was named the president of the Verband Deutscher Tonmeister, the Association of German Sound Professionals, and received a prestigious grant from the Women's Fund of the New York Foundation of the Arts for her work on Ira Bloom's Grammy-nominated album 2023, Picturing the Invisible, Focus 1. 2025 again found Schwarz and Bloom receiving an award for the New Music USA Creator Fund. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, I would like to bring on to the program the lovely Ulrike Schwarz, and there she is. Hello, how are you?
Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and I'm very happy and honored to be on your podcast.
Well, thank you. It's great and wonderful and an honor to have you. I have to make an apology, I guess, to you particularly and to all those Germans out there that I'm not very good with the German language. It's odd because music, the terminology in music is typically either Italian, French, and German. Those 3 languages are found throughout music and throughout the terminology, but probably mostly Italian and then French and German. And I just could not get the handle on that German language.
It's a difficult one. It's, it's closer to, it's very close to Scandinavian, to Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish, of course. But it's not a Roman language. It's an Indo-German language, and that makes it a little difficult and hard, very hard to learn for other people. Yes.
I agree. And I wish, I had the opportunity when I was in high school to study German. I took Spanish instead, which is very similar to Italian. It's a romantic language. It is what it is. But if I have to learn more, I'm going to hang around with you a little bit longer, a little more.
Yeah, it's difficult, and it would be overdone to say that Jim has mastered it yet. So it's no fault to anybody else. And I think German also consists mostly of exceptions and not of rules. That's at least what I hear from people who try to learn German. And for us, it's just like, oh, yeah, well, it's what it is. So it's that much about Germans and their rules. Yeah.
I have to say your English is very good. My mother-in-law, her name is Gina Benedetti, comes from a town near Florence, Pistoia, near Florence. She's been in this country. She's 95. She's been in this country for 75 years. She still can't speak English. I mean, she still struggles, with the English language. So it's, sometimes it's just a matter of what you need to do. I think you handle English very well. Ulrike, first of all, one other thing, I just want to thank you for your work on my personal projects, because you did a lot on my projects, and I appreciate your expertise and everything you did for, mastering my symphony and all the things that the retrospective, the piano album and all those things. So I really appreciate that. So make that public knowledge here. I wanted to ask you, what was your first instrument? How did you get started in music? What was your inspiration, and what was your instrument that you played?
So actually, it starts earlier than the instruments. I think it starts with around 3 or even 2.5, when I was able to go to one of those early music classes. And actually, I think the story goes that no, it's not a story. I was able to read and write music before I was able to read and write. So
Wow.
that started very early. And I think this is where the hearing also comes from, that I was just very interested in those sounds. And I didn't want to go to kindergarten unless it was a musical kindergarten, basically. And then we moved to a different city. So I think by the time I was 5, I had already moved 3 times or 4 times. So I moved a lot when I was growing up. And then I didn't like their musical preschool thing. And I had decided by that point I wanted to become a trumpeter. I'm not quite sure why trumpet, but I was told that as a kid with the other teeth, you couldn't play trumpet yet. And they wanted to start me on a recorder, to which I said, no, a recorder is not an instrument, then it has to be piano. And that was in the age of 5, I think. Yeah. So I started playing piano at the age of 5.
Oh.
And it went all downhill from there. Yeah.
That's interesting. 5. Okay. Piano. I didn't know that. See, I'm learning myself here. And let me ask you this. At what point did you make the transition into engineering?
I would say at about 15, I became aware that, yes, my piano playing was very good, but probably to be a pianist on international stages, there would be a limit. I mean, I kind of knew I would get into even prestigious conservatories, but I kind of had figured out at that point, pianist was probably not what I wanted to be, and piano teacher was certainly not what I wanted to be either. And then I thought, my piano playing is not on the level of my hearing, and I didn't quite know what was the job for the hearing part. And actually, I think it was someone at school, actually, at high school, got me to an internship at Bavarian Radio, where I ended up working in the end. And they took me on for one of those holiday or vacation internships. And the second day, I think I was there, they took me to one of those famous halls that you actually showed pictures of. And then I thought, oh, that would be cool to learn. And that would be cool to work here. And that's how I found out actually that there is the job of the sound engineer, and then there's the job of the producer. And the producer is actually the guy, that sat behind me with the score. Mm-hmm. So I thought the guy with the score, that's what I want to be, because he seems to be the boss of the room. And I studied for that one. And this is this prestigious program, this Tonmeister program. And while I was studying it, I found out actually nobody listens to the guy up there. The guy on the mixing board, that's much cooler, because in the German system, you could only do classical music if you were the producer. And I wanted to do jazz, and I wanted to do all the other forms of music that we will be eventually talking about. And so while I was studying for producer, I noticed how much cooler it is to actually be the person that sits on the mixing board. And I have the full degree in music production and classical music production, but I started really getting very interested in engineering. And on a semester that I was doing for jazz piano at the Berklee School of Music, I started actually working in New York City with certain engineers, and I got my introduction into serious engineering from a person called James Anderson. And because I was working for him as an assistant, and he really made me, he got me very fit in a very short amount of time, because he said, we can't tell anybody that you are actually a student. So you have to be a professional right away. And so I like from semester 2 on, I was basically working one semester a year in New York, and the other one I was studying in Germany.
I see.
So.
Interesting. That's amazing. I have a picture I'd like to show. This is not when you were real young, but you're young here, I know.
Yes. So this is actually from 2009, and this is this Hercules Sound studio in Munich. That's the big orchestral studio at the big orchestral hall, and that's me being 34, actually.
Okay. Yeah. And
so, yeah.
You spent more than 10 years serving as the senior sound engineer for large orchestral and jazz productions at the famed Bayerischer Rundfunk in Munich. And I have a picture. Now maybe this is not the right concert hall. That's
Stavanger. That's actually, yeah, in that sense, an amazing hall, because it is the quietest hall I've ever recorded in. I mean, it's directly at the harbor, Stavanger harbor. There are maybe 4 or 5 big cruise ships in the harbor, and you don't hear anything. This thing is phenomenal. It's a hall built in, I think, finished in 2012, and we got the possibility to record there in 2015, 16, and 17. And it was one of the most amazing buildings I've ever been in.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Is that in Norway? Is that where that is?
Yes, that's in Stavanger, Norway.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the stage there with all the microphone stands, and you have all these overhead mics. And I have I'm wondering where this was recorded, but I have an excerpt I'd like to play from the Beethoven Symphony No. 3. And this excerpt is Movement 1. Is this in this hall?
No, that's Suntory Hall, Tokyo. The Beethoven is going to be in, that's the Tokyo version. Yeah.
Let me play this, and then maybe you could tell us about the Tokyo experience and how you ended up there with doing all the Beethoven symphonies. Okay, let me play this. Well, there you go. Wow. That's great. So Beethoven wrote 9 symphonies, composed 9 symphonies. And tell us about Tokyo and how that came about and what you had to do there.
So, and this is also going to the story of famous last words. I think while I was studying, I said, nobody needs to record another Beethoven cycle. They have been recorded. And of course, what kind of would be probably one of my main jobs at Bavarian Radio was record 2 Beethoven cycles. So the idea was our chief conductor, Maris Janssons, who was at that moment probably one of the most famous conductors in Europe. And the orchestra was rated, I think, together with the Berlin Philharmonic and maybe Concertgebouw Amsterdam, the best orchestra in the world. He said, I want to record a Beethoven cycle, and I want to record it in a modern hall. And the only hall that can be done is Century Hall, Tokyo, which, of course, kind of, that was a big affront to all Europeans, because, I mean, Beethoven wrote that in Vienna for Vienna, and we have one of the best sounding halls in Europe, I would say. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, Century Hall, that was a big swing. So the orchestra used to do concert tours to Japan every other year, or sometimes even every year in December. So it was planned for the year 2012 that the Beethoven cycle should be recorded in 4 days in Tokyo, in Century Hall, in cooperation with NHK, the National Japanese Broadcasting Corporation. And to make money for it and also to train for it, we spent 2 years, so basically since 2010, recording all the Beethoven symphonies in Europe so that we could actually sell that in Tokyo. Mm-hmm. So I spent about 2 years recording the 9 symphonies in various halls, and then that was put together as a package. And then we flew, I mean, the orchestra was already on tour in Korea, and then we all flew out, or we all means the chief producer and myself, to Tokyo to kind of supervise the recordings at Century Hall, which was interesting because they gave us a truck that was basically equipped with everything that we had in Munich. It was just that, of course, NHK engineers would sit at the board, and I could only give my notes to this engineer basically through 2 translators. So I would talk to one person, that one person might talk to another person before it actually got to the engineer. So any engineering notes came very late. Because the engineer, we found out the engineer who was sitting at the board actually had never worked with the board, because that was our board. And it kind of had, it was very interesting because it was more of a diplomatic challenge than a technical. Because, I mean, technically, I did know what I wanted, and he, or the NHK, had 3 assistants. And so I wanted my microphones in a certain position at some instruments, and sometimes I would step back on the concert, on the stage, and then they would be in a different position. And then I would ask to have them lowered, and then I would. So that this kind of went on, and our German producer was very German. And when he didn't hear what he wanted to hear, what I had told the engineer through my translators, he would at some point start yelling at him in German, which is very helpful with a Japanese person, because they really like to be yelled at. And I spent several lunch breaks having to take them out and drinking a lot of beer to make them not walk off stage. So it was very interesting. And it was of course, a lot of time pressure, because if you try to record 9 symphonies in 4 days at 4 performances, you kind of have to be very exact in the pre and post production. But the good thing was we were prepared. Since we had done that for 2 years prior, we kind of knew where the difficult moments probably would be, and could kind of pre-produce some of the excerpts in the morning. And only if we had to, we could call the orchestra back on stage afterwards. But that was extremely expensive and very, very tiring. So you really had to keep that down to possibly under 10 minutes, because every quarter of an hour would be multiple thousands of euros to prolong the session. So yeah, that was interesting. And the end of it was I would take home the drives and we would mix it in Munich, and then it would be also married to the picture from Japan. And they had another very, very famous engineer in Japan who was doing the Japanese mix for the Blu-ray. And in the whole playback session, so we would have playback sessions with Maestro Janssens at some point, and then he would look around and said, like, it's a 70-plus-year-old Russian conductor, and he would look around and said, "Who did this mix?" And I said, "Oh, I did." And he was, "Good, fly to Tokyo, do that again." And then we said, we can't really do this because it's all about face losing, and they hired this other very famous guy who is actually a friend of mine who taught me how to mix immersive music, by the way. And it was like, but if Maestro says you fly to Tokyo, then flights to Tokyo are going to be booked. And so it in the end, he did the mix and I stayed in the back. So there's one version where he's doing the mix, but what we heard, I think, is my version. So it to me, it doesn't matter because both of them are really good. But it's really, it was a more of a diplomatic mission than also a technical. And I think if you've heard all 9 symphonies, once you hear all 9 symphonies in that short of a time, the last movement of the 9th isn't overblown anymore. It actually makes sense. Well, if you just listen to the 9th, you don't understand what is going on and why all of this went so out of shape. Mm-hmm. But if you hear them as a cycle, then you think, yeah, it's a good ending. Makes sense. Yes. Yeah.
That's interesting. And to record, how about for the orchestra? It must be pretty grueling to record. First of all, not just perform, but to record 9 symphonies in 4 days. That's amazing. That's a challenge right there, right? Even for the orchestra.
I mean, I think so. I mean, they are used to performing when they're on 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 concerts a week. So, but usually they only have 2 or 3 different repertoires. And that was really every night a very different one. However, they, like us, had trained for several years. And I think if you are a European orchestra player, Beethoven symphonies is what you grow up with. So they're kind of, I mean, the way he conducted them, they were very chamber music-y in parts. And he really wanted to, throw the balls. I mean, you showed some of it from through the woodwinds, from first to second and everything. So they knew what they were in for. So, and also we had basically every position was doubled. So like there were 2 concertmasters, there were 2 first flutists, there were, I mean, so they would not have to play every symphony every day, but they did a good portion of them. Yeah.
That makes sense. That solves a lot of issues right there. Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about something totally different style of music. Hans Weisholzer.
Wiesholzer. I'm sorry. Wiesholzer. Hans Wiesholzer. Yeah. Yeah.
And he is an accordionist?
Yes.
Right? So this is German folk music. And interestingly, I noticed that, you know that I'm an accordion player. That was my first instrument from the time I was 4 years old. And of course, I had played over the years in different shops where they sell accordions. There was one in New York I used to go all the time. And they had accordions from all over the world, and of course the Germans always played the Hohner accordion, which had a very bright sound compared to like the Italian accordions that I would use, a very bright sound. And so it's interesting for me to see that the Hans is playing a Hohner accordion, because that would be what you would use if you were in Germany, So I have a little short video. I'd like to play this. It's kind of a compilation. So let's play this for the audience. Then we'll talk about it. Here you go. I love it.
So
Yeah, tell us about this project, because you recorded his CDs. I think you showed me you have a CD.
yeah, I have
Yeah, there you go.
I have the CD of this. Yeah. As staff engineer, I would mostly do, you know, those big orchestra recordings and big jazz recordings, but I also did folk music. I mean, since Munich is in Bavaria and they have there's now a whole channel dedicated to Bavarian folk music. It's called BR Heimat. If you ever want to check it out, it's internet radio, and in New York, we just sometimes love listening to it because it's so different, and it's that kind of music.
Uh-huh.
And I was on sometimes outside broadcasting duty, and then we would take one of the big buses and go into some Bavarian village and, you know, record the folk music of the day. And they had a lot of shows, actually live shows, recorded shows, and this young man, I think it was the guitar player who kind of made it happen that we were allowed to, he wanted to record a CD, and we were allowed actually to use the studios of Bavarian Radio, because I was supposed to teach, I think, a couple of technicians how to do kind of not so big music recordings, smaller music recordings. And so I had a couple of actually specialists in radio drama who were my assistants on this one, and we taught them to record and produce folk music. And this is how we did that. And then I of course I recorded, produced, and mastered the whole thing, which was kind of my the beginning, I would say, of myself also doing mastering, because up till then I was basically the recordist and maybe the producer. But it became clear, especially in classical music, that mastering is part of the mixing. And so I started mastering on this one. And I mean, nowadays I'm very often doing our mastering, and mastering also for bigger projects and not only stereo, because it just became a natural progression for me to do this part of the job as well. And yeah, I mean, the duties at Bavarian Radio were not only music, but also I did radio drama as well. I did features, and I started actually in TV. And one of my first jobs was going to the Olympic Games in Salt Lake City.
Oh, wow.
So I've done really very, very diverse things there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, Olympic Games, of course, is one of the best jobs you can ever have. It's super stressful, but it's great. It's
yeah,
fantastic.
I've been a lot of stress.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, that's great, and I love that you have such a wide range of things that you musically that you are involved with and have been involved with. I'm going to go back to the orchestras, and this is a picture of you setting up the stage, and so you were. I mean, you just didn't have people doing all of these things for you.
I did.
Did you? You had assistants and technicians that helped.
Yeah.
Throughout the process.
It is just in. This is a picture from Stavanger, where we had one. I think where we had one assistant. Like our whole setup was being shipped from Berlin to Stavanger because there's no rental house in Stavanger. And I think Jim and the assistant were setting up the control room.
Uh-huh.
And so I had a lot of time setting up my microphones myself. And I was just on the stage doing this and that and the other thing while they were setting up the control room. And I think for one recording, I think the Kværndrup recording, I set all the microphones up myself because I don't know what was going on back there. And they were exactly where I wanted them. Sometimes it's also, you can tell an assistant where you want the microphones, and then you still have to go and say, but yeah, it's almost there, but I really want it there. It's like this 3D puzzle. And this one is actually the stage in Munich, where we had 24 motorized lines coming from the ceiling.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so this is one of the I think this is one of the string microphones that will then go up, and then it's again this 3D puzzle where you have to take the angle of the microphone, and then somebody will pull a string to the railing, and then you turn it up. So it's kind of you even if you have one or two assistants, they might be on the balcony trying to tie down the microphone. So this is actually what happens here, is that I'm giving it the angle, and I have on my shoulder the remote, how high I want it, and then they pull it backwards. So that's how most of these things happen.
I see. That's interesting. And I have another excerpt from, it's actually a different Beethoven Symphony Number 6, and it's also an excerpt from the first movement. So I'd like to play that. This is also from Tokyo, is that correct?
I think that's from Tokyo, yeah.
Okay, let's play this. What great memories you have with all of these. Oh my goodness, that's wonderful.
Well, there were moments when we actually thought we are getting paid for this. I mean, we're getting paid for them, watching them rehearse. We're getting paid for. I mean, it was a fantastic job. I mean, no questions asked.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you traveling to Cuba, where you recorded a live concert with Gonzalo Rubalcaba in 2017, I believe. So I have a few pictures I'd like to share with the audience. This one is just the piano. There's the artist and Gonzalo, and you can see all the microphones that are positioned around the piano. Yeah. And this picture, I see Jim in there, and of course you and Jim are having the center as Gonzalo, and the two guys on the end, they're stagehands. Is that right?
Yes.
And then the other gal is Gonzalo's wife.
Yes.
Okay, so this is one of the pictures that are there, and then I have this picture, and this is you recorded this concert from backstage. Is that right?
Yes. So the picture was taken from exactly this position. So we are sitting on stage behind the curtain, and we were actually on holidays in Italy, and then we got this call from Gonzalo's manager whether we could be basically 10 days later or something in Cuba recording this concert, and we thought, what what is happening? And we kind of made a couple of calls. Luckily I had this laptop with me, which is I mean, it's an Apple laptop that does normal things like personal laptops do, but it had a layer, also a Windows layer on it, that had my favorite editing and recording program on it. So we actually said, yes, we can do it. And what happened to be really very convenient was that if we flew we flew eventually to Germany, and from Germany to Cuba, if Jim, as an American, flew in from a different country that is not America, he could actually enter Cuba.
Oh.
And for me as a German, that wasn't a problem anyway, because I had a lot of friends who actually had holidays in Cuba. So that wasn't a problem. We just needed microphones and this little silver interface that you see behind me with that little triangle as a light. That is actually that's the interface where all microphone cables came in. And my little laptop in that moment not only recorded the concert, it also gave a 2-channel broadcast mix to the, I think, Cuban TV that was there with a lot of cameras. And as it is sometimes a convention in South American and Caribbean theaters, they wanted to do PA. So Jim's job was to tell the PA guy to turn down the PA, but I had to give actually a PA mix out. I had to give the broadcast mix out, and then I recorded the multi-tracks so that we could mix it later, edit and mix it later.
I see. I have one more picture. I love this picture here.
Mm-hmm.
beautiful hall in Havana. It's and you could tell us a little bit about the hall and the Havana itself.
Yeah, so this is the Gran Teatro de la Habana, like the concert hall in Havana, Cuba, and it's beautiful. I mean, it was I think built, I would say, late 1800s. It was. I mean, the city of Havana is beautiful. It's just gorgeous, and the people there also they're wonderful. The interesting part was we arrived before Gonzalo, because Gonzalo actually brought the microphones and the interface in, because we flew in from Italy to Germany to Cuba, and he brought in the interface and the microphones from friends of ours in Virginia. Okay. And actually, when we entered the concert hall, Cuba has very strong relationships to East Germany, or to the old East Germany. And when of course they wouldn't speak English, or when they saw somebody who looked American, like Jim, they were like, oh, we're not talking to this person. And first I tried it with Spanish because I had Spanish in school, but I could basically get out the question, and then they would answer in full speed. And I thought, oh, this is not going well, because I don't understand. It was too fast. And I tried German, and they would speak German.
Oh wow!
Like the doctors, I think, in Cuba speak German, and the whole cultural scene was also very very German minded, and they understood me, and they would kind of talk to me, and would largely ignore Jim because he was American. Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. So I have a video of the concert. It's a little compilation. Let's play this for the audience in Havana. That was very cool.
Well, I mean, this is of course a recording session that Jim did, but I mean, you kind of hear on what level his playing is. And the reason for the concert in Havana was that Gonzalo wanted to give back. So he did not want any ministers, this was really for his people. So he made sure that only like normal Cubans would attend the concert, and he played for over 3 hours. And if you've seen like how demanding his playing style is and how virtuous it is, and it was 3 hours. It was amazing. It was stunning. Yeah.
I love the percussion too, and those guys everyone was really a fine artist in that group. I mean, it's awesome. And I noticed that they were all wearing headsets as opposed to floor monitors. Is that?
Well, I mean, again, this was a studio session. This was not the concert in Havana. I mean, the concert in Havana was solo piano. Only he played. So this is this is the usual studio situation where
they get a mix.
Percussionist in his booth. The bass was close to Gonzalo, but they were they would all be wearing headphones. Yeah.
I would love to hear a little clip from the solo piano concert. That's something that I would like to hear someday.
We do have it, and also we mixed it because we believe this is the first immersive recording out of Cuba. We mixed it in full 3D. It's just they never officially released it, although Dolby asked us if they could have it. We have a lot of offers for that recording, but Gonzalo thought his playing wasn't good enough, which of course is ridiculous because his playing was absolutely amazing. Yeah. But I think at some point I'll probably have to go down to Miami and edit with him. Because I mean, we only have one version of everything, but I already edited one of the Stars and Stripes. I edited down from, I want to say 11 minutes to 8 or 7 already. So I mean, there is potential. And I think it just has to be done. But he, the way it was, he wouldn't release it. He's very, very hard on himself. And I think it can be done, but that's why we can't play it.
So let's talk about the Grammy Awards. I know that Jim has won, I think, 11 or so Grammys, nominated for
13.
20, whatever. But you've been nominated for several, and there's a picture of you being interviewed. This is in 2023, is that right?
Yes, that was during the pandemic when they had the Grammys in Las Vegas for 1 year.
Yes, yeah.
And that was, I think, when we were nominated with Patricia Barber's Click album. That was for best immersive sound. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And then I have this. Well, this is actually the poster that you were just talking about with Patricia Barber Click.
Yeah, I think this is at the Axpona in Chicago, where this is this. I mean, the picture is obviously from a photo shoot, and we were presenting the recording for the first time in 5.1 at a audiophile show, and Patricia was there. So that's the first time she actually heard her own recording in that format, and she ended up liking it a lot, which is great because usually she does not come to these type of shows, although she is very famous for her audiophile performances. But this was just me playing with the picture there. Yeah.
So I have a question I'd like to ask you. About you and Jim. How did you two meet, and how did you start working together? Were you a greater influence on Jim, or vice versa? Or was it easy working together as husband and wife? As you know my wife Lana and I worked together for many, many years in our business, and it wasn't always a walk in the park, right? So I'm just curious to know how you met and how this all developed,
Well, it's very unspectacular. We met in the studio. So, with as you would with those type of jobs.
You were doing the same work, right?
Yes, so we were basically doing the same work, and as I mentioned before, when I was a student, so I looked it up yesterday. So I have known Jim now for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
So the first time we met, I think, was 1995.
Okay.
And I was a student, and he was one of those engineers whose sound I really liked. And as I was working in New York City, I kind of got myself on a Jim Anderson session. And basically, work-wise, it clicked immediately because he gave me something to set up. And after 20 minutes, I came back and said, it's set up. And he said, what? He wasn't really, I think, used to that speed or whatever. And by, I think, the end of the day, I had a paying job because I was assisting him on, I think that summer, I want to say that was his summer of big bands, 4 or 5 big band projects. And I was just basically handling all of the microphones and do the setup. That's why, when I have to set up an orchestra, I like that because then the microphones will finally stand where I want them to stand. So that's, so that was my job. And, but I was still in Berlin, and then I did my whole 10 years or how many, 15 years at Bavarian Radio. And we kind of kept in touch in terms of when he wanted whatever assistant or when he needed an A2, I would come to America. And there was nothing spectacular about it. And I think we met again, I want to say 2009 at a professional conference. And that's basically where it clicked. So the working part is very, very easy, because we had an understanding of how things should sound and where things should be. And very often when I work with another engineer, I'm really frustrated because it doesn't work by telepathy. So I actually have to say what I want. So that I don't like. And we work very well together because we, again, have the same idea about sound and very often the same thinking of how it should be done. And whether I work as a producer and he's the engineer, or in some cases I'm the recording engineer, he will mix for me as a producer, or he's the producer, it doesn't actually matter, because we're very flexible in those roles. What I can say is, of course, there's not always just sunshine, but that doesn't affect work. That's actually the very good news, that as soon as we're talking about work and sound, we know what we want. So that's awesome. Good.
That's awesome. Good for you. Good. I'm glad to hear that. And it's obviously worked well for you because you guys are very successful. So,
and actually today I was booked to work with a different engineer in somewhere Virginia in December, and Jim was like, "Well, shall I come?" And I said, "Of course you shall come." I mean, I know that Jim would be the better engineer, but I mean, they have their engineers, so we're not interfering with this. Sure. So he'll probably end up doing the. Last time he was there, he started making photos, and he ended up being actually the photographer for the booklet. And so he's just probably going to be around and make the other engineer nervous. I don't know what he wants to do, but it was like, no, I'm not staying here by myself. Like, well,
that's fun.
So,
that's good.
Yeah,
that's great. I have a video of an excerpt from the New World Symphony, which is Dvorak's Ninth. Could you tell us a little before I play it, or would you rather comment after?
Oh, I can do both. The Bavarian Radio Symphony is always also very much inclined to find new talents, and this person now, Mr. Andres Nelsons, if you may know that, he is now chief conductor of the Boston Symphony. Yeah. And at that moment I would say 2010, 11 when that recording was made. I'm not quite sure. And he was kind of the next hot big thing in conductors in Europe. No. At that moment. And then we did the Dvorak 9, and I think that is another one of these Echo Classics. I think he got that award for this recording. And this is done in my favorite concert halls, like the concert hall that I was talking about that influenced my decision-making on what job I wanted to have. Mm-hmm. So that's Herkulessaal Munich in the Town Palace of Munich. And I think we're listening to an excerpt from the first movement, right? Or is the fourth movement? I forgot.
I think it is the fourth, but I'm gonna yeah.
I think it's the fourth.
Well, I should have it on here. Let's watch it and know right away here. And this is the hall where the microphones come down from the ceiling, right?
Yes, that's one of them. Yeah.
How many microphones are available to come down from the ceiling? 24 or something?
24 from the ceiling, plus the 4 that we had as a surround set. So I have to say, this was not a production. This was live in concert, and we had a week of rehearsals leading up to that. Okay. And then the job was to do a stereo and a 5.0 broadcast at the same time. So that's kind of how that worked, and yeah, that was one of the orchestra weeks, and it turned out to be a very, very good one. And not every time we had cameras there, but this was also slated to be a Blu-ray release. Yeah. Awesome. And what I wanted to say about the Dvorak Ninth, that again ties back to my studies in Berlin. The beginning of the second movement, where the brass have their brass choral opening. It was my final oral exam in music theory to describe the chord progression that was going on there, while also kind of describing. They played me a professional recording, and while I was describing the chord progression, I was also supposed to do the intonation, kind of tell them about the intonation that either had to be corrected or had to be there in this progression. And then the thing is, well, where do you set up the intonation, at the tuba or at the 440 level, or where who is wrong in what respect? So that was my final oral exam of the Tonmeister degree in ear training and music theory. So the Ninth Symphony and I have a very intimate relationship. Yeah.
I guess so. And that was that the Berlin Orchestra?
No, this was our orchestra. This was the Bavarian Radio Symphony.
It was
that orchestra that played this one was the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra.
Oh, Bavarian. Okay, I see. That was wonderful. Great. I love the orchestra. I love the conductor too. Thought it was really, really great. So I have one last video clip that I'd like to play. Before I play it, do you have any stories that you'd like to share? Now, you're not allowed to tell anything about Jim, but anything else?
Oh, there are many. I know that your podcast with Jim ran a little bit long because he's Mr. Storyteller.
Yeah.
I mean, the one, I think you're referring to the Mahler setup. And again, the conductor, Yannick Nézet-Séguin, is now the chief conductor of the Metropolitan Opera and I think Philadelphia Orchestra. So we kind of had them when they were very, very young. And I remember a story of Mr. Nézet-Séguin. I think the first time he was with the orchestra, he stepped in I think 2 days before the performance was, because the conductor that was booked fell ill, and he came from 0 to Mahler 7. And everybody was completely floored at what performance that he could get out of the orchestra. And then he became, of course, a regular at our orchestra. And when it came around to do Mahler first, that was almost easy for him. And I think it was also in the weeks of I don't know if it was a European championship or if it was a soccer world championship. I think it was a European championship. And he would be conducting not this performance, because obviously it was with cameras, but the rehearsals he would be performing in the German soccer shirt, which of course endeared him very much to the orchestra, which obviously are big soccer fans. Mm-hmm. So he really knows how to get a very good sound out of them very, very quickly.
Okay. And so we're going to play that video. This is the Mahler First Symphony. And this is the second movement, an excerpt from the second movement. So it's, wow, wonderful. That was beautiful. Well, first of all, you were positioned in the very back of the hall. I remember there was a window there, yeah?
Yeah, basically, when you have the cut to Nézet-Séguin, there's this little window there. And this is where I'm sitting. And the view that the excerpt ended with, like this total, the camera is positioned just right under my window. Okay. So this is basically the view I had for 10 years.
Best seat in the house.
Yeah, it's the best seat in the house. And again, especially with the surround broadcast, I also had by far the best sound in the house, because I made it basically for myself. Right. And I think what that ties into is the excerpt that you played also had these the faraway trumpets. I mean, in the end of the excerpt, you see them coming into the hall and actually taking their place up front. But they were playing in the foyer outside the main hall. That's why it really took a while for them to, walk all the way back and come back on stage. Right. And interestingly enough, Bavarian Radio was one of the first, or they were the first broadcasting network within the national German broadcast to start the regular surround broadcasts. Oh. And that's why I was sent to Japan to learn from the Japanese, who had done that for years already, to kind of learn more about surround recording, where I met in 2005 the gentleman that I was doing the 2012 broadcast with, and he was the chief engineer of NHK in 2005, had been retired by the time 2012 came along, because if he had been sitting at the board, I could have talked very directly to him. But so he was the interpreter who had to tell his young colleague what that woman from Germany wanted. And the whole thing was just, it was just amazing. And then again, they didn't only tell me about surround, which is like 5 speakers in the same plane. They were already at 3D. They already had height speakers and actually bottom speakers. And when Mr. Rattle recorded the first time with the Bavarian Radio Orchestra, which was a sensation because he was chief conductor of the Berlin Philharmonic, and usually the chief conductor of the Berlin Philharmonic does not conduct another German orchestra. So the first time he recorded with the Bavarian Radio Symphony was 2010, and I happened to be the person who did that broadcast. And we sat there for 10 days watching him work with the orchestra and really the orchestra and the choir falling in love with him, and he falling in love with the orchestra. That's why he is their chief conductor now. It was one of those moments where you think, oh, I'm being paid for this. This is my job, and getting paid to see those people work. And because we were all on this high, that was the moment when I started. I said, well, let's hang some height microphones. And that turned out, like, my first recording with Simon Rattle turned out to be my first 3D recording, which is what Jim and I these days are kind of known for, is our immersive recording. And all of that started because the Japanese had started it, and Simon Rattle was okay with it. We did it. And I presented it 3 weeks or 5 weeks later, I think, at a conference in Tokyo. So it's like it always works out. It's like all is a circle. It always comes back to Tokyo. Yeah.
back to Tokyo. Huh?
Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing. Well, Ulrike, you've had a wonderful career, and I'm sure it's you're probably midway through your career. You have a long way to go, and a lot of great recordings ahead, I'm sure. So I just want to thank you for your time and for being on the program. I appreciate it. I appreciate your talents, and as I said, what a wonderful career you've had up to this point so far. So keep it going, and keep in touch with us down here in Florida. And if you're ever down here, you stop in and see us. So.
Oh, thank you very much. And by that, I also want to do a plug for your son's restaurants.
Oh,
when I was in Miami with recording, actually, Mr. Rubalcaba, we drove to Vito Jr.'s restaurants, and they're excellent. They're absolutely excellent, and I would recommend to everybody to go and see him.
Vivace. Yeah, there you go.
Vivace. There you go. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for all you do. And I find this series really great and wonderful. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to see you again. You take care.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And there you have another episode of Memories of a Musician with Ulrike Schwarz Anderson. Very talented recording engineer, mastering engineer, talented musician. So looking ahead to next Wednesday, October 29th, we will return to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, to meet my special guest and a very dear friend, Dale Hertrick. Dale is a saxophonist, clarinetist, and a retired music educator. Dale taught in the Houston public schools for 6 years and ended his teaching career at the merged Pittsburgh Public Schools Kappa Rogers 6 through 12 Performing Arts School. In addition to his years as a music educator, Dale performed on saxophone and clarinet with many groups, including Conrad O. Johnson Big Band, the Chuck Nolan Big Band, the Balcony Big Band, We Three, the Three Rivers Saxophone Quartet, and along with his wife Laura and colleague Jim Shepard, founded the Berg Big Band. The podcast will be streamed live on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So be sure to tune in next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear the memories, stories, and journey of my special guest, Dale Hertrick. Thank you, and have a great evening.